Well, good morning, one and all. We welcome you back to the Formula Regional European Championship by Alpine. Qualifying one about to get us started here for the Spanish weekend in temperatures that have amassed the realms of 27 degrees through free practice. It's a little bit shorter than that, 25, but still very toasty. Track temperature on the rise as well. Humidity started reasonably high. It's dissipated slightly, but still high at 74%. As it stands, but we are on a high at the moment with how the championship currently looks. Freddie Slater from Prema sat at the top after a very disappointing Red Bull Ring weekend, comes away with 198 points, nearing the 2-century mark now is young Freddie Slater, but Matteo De Carlo is breathing down his neck in the Trident with a 195 in the championship rostrum. Has taken 3 race wins this season as Matteo De Carlo, 2 short of Freddie Slater's 5. Enzo Dellini down in 3rd place also for our Race GP, 173 points, 25 away from the championship leader Freddie Slater, and Pedro Cliro, who was one of the shining lights also from the Red Bull Ring round, managing to muscle in yet another victory, his 2nd of the season, making it 3 poles and also 4 podiums to round things off as well. 33 away from Freddie Slater points-wise, and still very close. Essentially, by and large, 4 drivers, 4 different teams in the hunt for the Drivers' Championship. We arrive here at Montmello, Barcelona. Of course, round 8 on our series run. We've got 2 more to bring you after this, of course. And if we have a look at some of the history around this track, it broke ground back on the 24th of February 1989, 36 years ago now, can you believe that? And then opened up on the 10th of September 1991 and started as it was opened, the start-finish line utilised in the Olympic Games that year for the cycling event, as now we watch as the cars nurse their way down through towards turn 1, just getting the heat into the Pirelli rubber. And of course, remember, we have 2 groups that will be making their way out for qualifying. Group A to kick things off here at the start of the session. Group B will then go out afterwards, but of course when we go to qualifying 2 tomorrow, it'll be roles reversed. Group B will go out first. They will then hand over the benefits of a warmer track to Group A, theoretically. But we could be in for a bit of a spicy one this weekend with the factor of potential rain coming in on Sunday. So we could see a major twist up, a major contrast perhaps in terms of conditions, given how it's so sunny here today on Saturday, and we're due to have stormy conditions tomorrow, so we'll see how that unfolds. But the drivers now making their way out on circuit, so you're now seeing the number 31 on screen at the moment of Akshay Bora, who has been very, very strong through the course of this season. Our Race GP as a team leading the team's championship race at the moment, and for good reason, because Enzo Dellini, of course, has been applying the big points in 3rd in the Drivers' Championship side. Akshay Bora sat just a little bit further back, only in 5th place, but took his first win in the series back at Imola in race 2 after starting on pole position. It was a lights to flag sensational performance really from our race, and they finished with a 1-2 as well, with Dellini finishing in 2nd place, and Dellini also picking up the race win at Imola in race 1. And it was also Akshay Bora in 3rd on that occasion. The first double podium weekend for Akshay Bora, with Dellini also grabbing one himself. And that has very much been the catalyst for their season so far, with Prema looking for big performances from the likes of Rashid Al-Dahiri, of course the Mercedes junior driver. We do have some new names to talk about as well at the same time. We can get down to those right now. And we also have some returning names. Juan Pu Kui as well joins the series, and we welcome him here from British F4, and looking to make his mark in the championship this time. The 17-year-old from Xi'an, China, back in 2021, Rock Cup Super Final, junior rock karting winner, and then in 2023 E4 Championship, he took part in that as well, with 2024 featuring the Formula Regional United Arab Emirates Series, and also, like I said, British F4, Chinese F4, and this year it's been largely Formula Regional Middle Eastern Championship competition and GB3 as well. But now arrives here in the Formula Regional European Championship by Alpine. New machinery, new car, obviously a new layer of understanding here for Juan Pu Chi, but he's looking forward to getting stuck into this one, and we'll see how he gets on as we make our way through the Barcelona weekend. Obviously, RPM bringing in some new drivers too. Not necessarily new, but faces we've seen from the past. And kicking things off, we have the returning Santiago Ramos back again in green and utilising the number 74 that was being used by Enzo Peugeot at the start of the season. Santiago Ramos, the 21-year-old from Guadalajara, Jalisco, Mexico, who's just returned from racing in the FIA Formula 3 Championship with Van Amersfoort Racing and had 2 wins in that series. It's been a while since we've seen him in the Formula Regional European Championship by Alpine. It was 2023 when we last saw him, of course. Edu Robinson currently fastest as he makes his way across the line. We're seeing him on screen right now. We also mark the return of Matteo Capietto as well, also a former driver representing in the Formula Regional European Championship by Alpine. Has also made some appearances with CL Motorsports in terms of pre-season testing, etc. Has also been racing in prototypes as well, but excited to jump back into the single-seater mobile. And the young 19-year-old from Montereau in France began his single-seater career back in 2021. And it was French F4 where he finished 3rd with 4 wins and 10 podiums, 3 poles. Of course, since then, Italian F4 was with the Monolight Racing team in Formula Regional European Championship by Alpine in 2022. RPM was where it all kicked off for him in 2023, where he took a podium for the very same team he's going to be racing for here this weekend. But ELMS LMP2 in 2024, he took a victory after taking pole as well that year. And also took part in the Le Mans 24-hour as well in LMP2 class, but was a DNF in that season's race. And finished 2nd, or should I say he's having his 2nd season in the ELMS, didn't finish 2nd, it's his 2nd season with the ELMS with Iron Lynx Proton as well at the same time. But good to see Matteo back as we watch as Edu Robinson once again continues around the final corner. And we'll light the timing screens up once more with 2 personal bests once again in the first 2 sectors. It's 1:36.719 for Robinson, part of the rookie driver contingent, driving for G4 Racing. Sakir Al-Maushari, who has left Axel GP and has moved on to pastures new, joining the G4 Racing squad as well. They're currently sat inside the top 3, the pair of them at the moment, but Rashid Al-Dahiri now storms to the top after a purple final sector, notches together a 1:36.176. Now Freddie Slater, Rashid Al-Dahiri's teammate, goes quickest, 1:35, first 1:35 of the session so far. We would expect the times to cascade downwards, folks, but we've actually surpassed collective tests fastest times. Mathieu de Parlo actually with a blanket through collective test 1 and collective test 2. 2 very strong 1:36s, but we didn't see a 1:35 at all. So Freddie Slater going into new areas here at Barcelona this weekend. Enzo Dellini 2nd fastest now as well for RAce GP after a purple middle sector, just not quite able to translate further time in the final sector and sits on the cusp of the 1:35s. But it's a very strong first lap of asking here for Freddie Slater, who, like I said before, comes in after a tricky Red Bull Ring round where tyres were the issue. After talking to him yesterday afternoon on his way to the driver briefing, I asked him, what happened, Freddie? What happened at Red Bull Ring? And he said basically the tyres, they had some increasing wear on one certain compound and it just did not balance correctly. And therefore he wasn't really able to muster his very best. And in the end, of course, it certainly wasn't one to remember for young Freddie Slater. Of course, finished with the 12 points in the 2nd race. That was probably the highlight of it all. And of course has led to him being 3 points up on Mathieu de Parlo in the championship. But you could almost say that he was perhaps fortuitous in some regards, that Mathieu de Parlo had an issue in race 2 that obviously toppled him down the order and down by a few laps. But we'll see how de Parlo responds as well. Not the best of weekends for either 2 of the drivers, apart from Mathieu de Parlo taking victory, of course, in race 1 at Red Bull Ring. But Rashid Al-Dahiri now storming down through towards turn 1 once again. Part of that Mercedes family where we've seen the likes of Alex Powell step in as of Austria. Of course, he's gone back to Italian F4 this weekend. Dorian Pan also racing for the Prema team, part of the Mercedes squadron. They have they place such high importance on this series, do Mercedes, as a route to develop young drivers. Andrea Kimi Antonelli was a prime example of that, now racing for the Mercedes Formula 1 team alongside George Russell. As we now watch as Rashid Al-Dahiri makes his way down through towards Seat, 36 thousandths up on the previous best time that he managed to, well, 36 thousandths away from the top time that Freddie Slater put in already coming out of the first sector. Eddie Robinson just over a tenth and a half away. Of course, Freddie Slater coming into this series, the young 16-year-old from a stellar karting career. Was first in the FIA Karting European Championship in OK Junior back in 2021, and also won the Ginetta Juniors Winter Series title in 2022 and the Ginetta Juniors title in itself the following year with 16 wins. Began his single-seater journey with Prema for Italian F4, winning the title with 15 wins, and also winning the F4 UAE title with the Mumbai Falcons. But in Italian F4, breaking all the records that were set in place by Dennis Hauger and then later by Andrea Kimi Antonelli. Slater sits above them all. Delaney now 3 tenths away from him, as now we see Rash Delda. Here he goes, second fastest this time, 2.5 tenths away from his Prema teammate. And Jin Nakamura also making time as well. Here comes now the number 27 of Freddie Slater, looking to once again put a gulf in between himself and Jin Nakamura, who goes second fastest. It's now over half a second. Delaney bringing it straight back in, though. And just over 2.25 tenths away from our championship leader right now. Of course, Nakamura gaining 20 places alone in race 1. Started from the back of the grid and he ventured into the points. And I said it to him yesterday, I think probably setting the record for most overtakes in one race, did Jin Nakamura, despite it being on fresh tyres, of course. You still have to be in the car and put it together in order to achieve a result like that, and it was a stunning Jin Nakamura display. And a prime example of what he's capable of, and it could be the catalyst to his weekend. Nikita Bedrin now popping up into third, was also featuring in the higher realms of the free practice numbers through the course of the weekend. And following on from a grand display where we saw him go toe-to-toe with Delaney back at Red Bull Ring. They were fighting over second place in race 2, or race 1, I should say, at Red Bull Ring. And it was Nikita Bedrin who came away with the better result. Delaney had to settle for third on that occasion, and it marked Nikita Bedrin's second podium of the campaign. And they came back to back because, of course, he was third in race 2 at Imola, just behind Delaney on that occasion. So it was roles reverse entering Austria. But Slater currently top of the times, 1:35.320. We now watch Eddie Robinson make his way down through towards turn 1 once again. We're into the final 1 minute and 30 in Group A here. We firmly expect to see the times perhaps just come down a slight shade before we hit the checkered flag. Robinson now nursing the Pirelli tyres through the first sector, will now look to open up and potentially improve. Just losing time in that first sector, though, that is not an improvement for Eddie Robinson. As we now pan ourselves across to Enzo Delaney. Third in the championship, 2 wins this campaign, 7 podiums in total, and also amassing 2 pole positions. Currently matching 2 with Matteo De Paolo. Of course, the 2 of them great friends, but in separate teams and both fighting for the same championship. Doesn't really get more poetic than that, but Delaney trying to chase down a personal best and does improve in that first sector. Only 41 thousandths away. Slater has gone purple in the first sector again at 29.041. Delaney, though, with his own personal best, it could all change coming through sector 2. He could potentially land a fastest middle sector or maybe even a fastest third. I could see this timing table turn upside down as now Delaney looks to move uphill and later fly through Kamsa corner before then beckoning downhill. There is Freddie Slater coming out of the Lakea bend at the end of the straight, and now up through towards Bank Sambadel, taking the banked corner through the stadium section and then heading downhill through the sweeping turn 13, which of course did have a chicane halfway through, but it will be Slater now, and it's Delaney purple in the middle sector. It's going to come down to this here in this first group of qualifying. Slater does improve, just under 2 tenths of a second. Nakamura, who currently sits in second, could see his teammate Delaney surpass him, and he will. Delaney not able to go first fastest, despite the purple effort in the middle sector, losing time in the final sector, but it was still enough to improve. And Delaney now just over 1.25 tenths away from Slater. who is now looking to notch together a 4th pole position of the season. Nakamura remains in 3rd. Bedrin improving in the first sector. No improvement in the middle. Kanato Lay goes green in the middle as well and improves to 8th fastest. But it's Slater, Delaney, Nakamura, your top 3 here in Group A so far. As more and more cars come across the line. Akshay Bora, 6th fastest at the same time. Michael Belov, of course, returning, the sole driver at CL Motorsport this weekend. He finishes down in 7th place ahead of Kanato Lay, Edu Robinson, who's improving in the first 2 sectors alike. And just trying to move back up ahead of the likes of Kanato Lay and Michael Belov. We've got Sakir Al-Moshari down in 10th too. 38.5 in that middle sector now, of course, with G4. With Wanpoon Kui in his first weekend down in 11th for Prema, a wildcard entry for this weekend. But it doesn't look like the pole time is going to be beaten. It's Freddie Slater, your fastest man out on track with a 1:35.250 for Prema. And we'll go fastest here in Group A session. Enzo Delaney in 2nd, Jin Nakamura in 3rd, Nikita Bedra in 4th, Rashid Al-Dahiri in 5th, ahead of Akshay Bora in 6th. Edu Robinson in 7th, Michael Belov in 8th, Kanato Lay in 9th, then Sakir Al-Moshari ahead of Wanpoon Kui in his first weekend here in the Formula Regional European Championship by Alpine for Prema, and he's ahead of Giovanni Maschio and Edouard Borgner down in 13th. So that brings an end to Group A. And they will, of course, go out second for qualifying 2 tomorrow. But Freddie Slater laying down a hefty benchmark, it has to be said. So it's going to be down to the likes of Mathieu De Parlo now to answer the call that Slater has put out. And the Trident driver, who was responsible for delivering Trident's first ever victory in the series back at Misano to kick off the championship, has gone on since to add yet another 2 victories to their record books after Hungaroring in Race 1 and Red Bull Ring in Race 1 also. Key to note that every single win that Mathieu De Parlo has taken this season has come in Race 1, so whether that bodes well for Barcelona, we'll soon find out. But one thing to also note is that Mathieu De Parlo has never taken a win in sequential rounds. And what I mean by that, of course, they have been in Race 1 every single time. But of course, Misano round 1, Race 1 was the victory. No win at Spa, no win at Zandvoort. It was a win at Hungaroring, no win at Paul Ricard, and no win at Imola, but a win at Red Bull Ring. So that is how it reflects at the moment. So whether that carries through again, and the form books suggest, he won't get a win at Barcelona, but obviously we break trends consistently here in the Formula Regional European Championship by Alpine, and it's down to the talent of the drivers at the end of the day. And Barcelona, filled with so much variation, can offer olive branches of opportunities to every single driver in the rostrum here this weekend. 13 cars, of course, lining up for Group A. We have 13 cars lining up for Group B as well. So 26 individual talents lining up onto the grid for 2 races through this Formula Regional European Championship by Alpine weekend. And making up the roster for the Group B session, we have Ruiki Liu from Trident. Hiyu Yamakoshi returns for Van Amersfoort Racing. Nanavad Biram Bhakti, also for Trident. Mathieu De Parlo making it 3 Tridents here in this session. Maceo Capietto on return for RPM. Pedro Clero for Van Amersfoort Racing, looking to lift himself higher up in the championship. Jack Beaton, the man from the Gold Coast, returns for Prema. Tim Gerhards comes in for Santalok. We have Dion Gouda for Van Amersfoort Racing. Santiago Ramos on his return, also to RPM, fresh from FIA Formula 3. He's also lining up alongside Taito Kato from ART, who has his teammate Evan Gilter in this one too. Yaroslav Vasalo, also part of Santalok, will be part of this Group B session. We're now going to watch take centre stage here at Montemelo. But straight away out of the blocks, Mathieu De Parlo heading straight out onto the circuit in the number 8 car. that we've seen on frequent occasions now take victories this season. Chasing his third pole position, looking to level the numbers with Freddie Slater in terms of poles for this season. Over the course of the campaign so far, we've had 7 different pole sitters, with Rashid Al Dahiri, Evan Gilter and Akshay Bora all taking 1 apiece. It's 2 for both Enzo Dellini and Matteo De Parlo, Pedro Cliro with 3, and Freddie Slater also with 3 alike. Of course, Cliro could yet take his 4th and jump himself ahead of Freddie Slater in the pole numbers. But the most important, integral matter is points, and they can only be scored in the race. As the great Bobby George used to say in the darting world, points for show, doubles for dough. Well, in this case, generally poles can contribute to points, but we all know it's the race that certainly matters most. And that's what makes the impressions on the championship. That's exactly what these drivers will have in mind as we watch as the drivers now sweep uphill through the Lakea bend and out of turn 10 through towards turn 11 at the top of the crest. And the 74 of Santiago Ramos now just getting himself back up to grips with this Tata chassis car. It's been a long time since we've seen Santiago Ramos behind the wheel of one of these. Obviously, it was FIA Formula 3 where he took 2 wins. But also a podium sitter here for RPM in this championship. And, I'm sure Keith Donegan has high hopes for them as well. Obviously, RPM very much a team on the ever improvement. Of course, Noah Stromstead, who was a vibrant talent also in the Formula Regional European Championship by Alpine, now since going on also to compete in FIA Formula 3. He was a rookie champion last year and was the first rookie champion that RPM have produced since joining the Formula Regional European Championship by Alpine. In terms of former pole sitters here around this track, we have had a strong variance of teams, though by and large it has been some of the top flight teams that we see in the series that have taken poles in the past. Of course, Prema were the first team to ever do it with Enzo Fittipaldi. David Schumacher also taking poles that same weekend as well for US Racing. But after that, we had Pierre-Louis Chauvet at Van Amersfoort, who went through a blanket through the weekend with Dennis Hauger as well. And that was in 2020. Gregoire Saucy, who went on to become champion in 2021, would go back-to-back in terms of poles in Race 1 and Race 2 with ART, and then the following season in 2022, Paul Aaron and Gabriel Bortoleto marking a notch in the lapel for Prema and RSGP. And then 2023, it was Andrea Kimi Antonelli, of course, now with Mercedes Formula 1, and Tim Tramnitz for RSGP for Race 2. And James Wharton, who was the first Prema driver to blanket the weekend for pole positions for them. That was last season. And he also went on to take it from lights to flag as well at the same time. But Freddie Slater, who we just saw go fastest, remember folks, it's a 1:35.250 to beat. That's what the Group B session has to do in order to achieve pole position. And remember, the pole sitter will have the rest of his or her group feature in behind on the same column of the grid. So let's see who that's going to be. Who's going to take that pole position to kick us off here at Barcelona Montmello? 10 minutes left in the session. The early times now coming in. Obviously not representative just yet. A 1:50.3 from Pedro Cliro, the young Brazilian. He's been part of the Van Amersfoort team now for a good portion of his time in single-seater racing, certainly here in Formula Regional European Championship by Alpine, the young 18-year-old who raced with them last year. Of course, the season before it was with MP Motorsport in Spanish F4, but in the Formula Regional European Championship by Alpine, featured 8th in the championship with 2 podiums last season, has now really grown and become the locker room leader at Van Amersfoort Racing. Of course, last year it was by and large, Brando Bador, who is spearheading the Van Amersfoort movement in the Formula Regional European Championship by Alpine. Mathieu de Parlo going quickest now. The times are getting more and more representative as time goes on, though Dion Gouda has gone purple in the first sector with a improvement of just over 5/10. And in fact, looking at it on our screens right now, matching first sector times in accordance to our screens here on live pictures. So now Mathieu de Parlo looks to cross the line once again, register himself to the top with a 1:49.246. So currently 14 seconds off where we would expect the times to be. It's a 1:35.250 to beat. So now we watch de Parlo fly uphill. That last win at Red Bull Ring, after achieving pole for that one. By and large looking for the same again. Tim Gerhard's also improving on this lap as we now wait for the faster times to rumble inwards, and it is a 29.1 now. This is more like it from Mathieu de Parlo, though he has had that purple first sector taken away by his Trident teammate Nandavid Birenbakhti. Part of a strong racing family, Nandavid Birenbakhti, whose relative PT has been racing in GT competition for quite some time. Also Nandavid building his own single-seater career. Many of these drivers looking to rise up through the single-seater ladder on the quest, on the road to Formula One. And de Parlo now finding yet more time in that middle sector. That's a 38.483 for the young Italian, who currently sits second in the championship, 3 points behind Freddie Slater. Did have the championship lead in his own pocket after a stellar win back at Red Bull Ring in the opening race. It was all snatched away, though, after the upset coming through the early stages of the race at Red Bull Ring Race 2. But here comes de Parlo, another big improvement, and that's a 1:35.589 off the bat. So now only sits 3.5 or so, just under that, in fact, away from Freddie Slater at the moment. Nandavid Birenbakhti now improving too. He's just over 3/10, nearly 3.25 away from Mathieu de Parlo. Big improvements elsewhere. Matteo Capietto going second, third fastest. Ryuki Liu making it 3 Tridents. Or was 3 Tridents inside the top 4, because Pedro Clero has just gone second fastest ahead of Birenbakhti. Capietto now in 4th as Liu drops down. Gouda into 4th fastest. Ramos currently sits down in 8th. And Jaroslav Vasalo also coming through. Hiyu Yamakoshi goes 5th fastest behind Dion Gouda. So that's 2 Van Amersfoorts now in 4th and 5th. Currently it's the 2 ARTs that are stagnant at the bottom of Evan Gilter and Taito Kato, but both improving on these next runs. Well, Gilter was very much considered a favourite to also compete for the title this year, but it hasn't quite panned out the way he probably would have envisioned. But Gilter going 4th fastest now and just over 4.5 away from de Parlo at the top of the shop. His teammate Taito Kato joining him, going into 5th with 5 minutes and 55 to go. There is Pedro Clero off the back of that second victory of the season last time out. Lights to flag, he took it, he stole the show, and showed that same kind of clinical nature that he brought out back at Zandvoort, delivering a phenomenal Van Amersfoort weekend that led to them taking a victory in race 2, but also a P2 in race 1 under Pedro Clero, and on both occasions in qualifying, going pole position. And we'll definitely be looking to try and rubber in the same again here at Barcelona. 5 minutes to go. De Parlo still on top with a 1:35.589. No one improving on these runs, so they're just cooling those tyres down, ready for yet another shot at it. We're now inside the final 5 minutes as we speak. It's 2.5 now between Clero and de Parlo, 2 names that feature inside the top realms of the championship. We saw Delaney and Slater also in the top realms of Group A. So the consistency still on show with regards to our highest competitors in the championship rostrum. De Parlo has gone purple again inside the first sector, but it's just been stolen by Nandavid Birenbakhti once more as well. So Trident once again hitting the heights, but Birenbakhti pretty much undoing every move that DeParlo's making at the moment. It's a 28.986 for Birenbakhti in that first sector, and it's not a 28 at all for Matteo DeParlo. It's a 29.101, and in fact Clero has gone quicker than DeParlo inside the first sector, so we have got quite the tussle for P1 at the moment, though we do still have 2 final sectors to bring. Turn 10 now will light things up here for Nandavid Birenbakhti. We just see him now coming into the heavy braking zone, and now curtsying the car uphill through towards Bank Sambadel at turn 11. And then Europe car to come before they then venture out of turn 13 and turn 14 out of New Holland to register yet another lap. Of course, Nandavid Birenbakhti, green in the middle sector, but DeParlo this time has gone faster than his own teammate. Let's see where Birenbakhti goes. 3rd fastest at the moment. Surely this will be enough to surely take him to the top now as DeParlo comes across the line. Not quite to the top for Nandavid Birenbakhti, but it's Trident 1 and 2 here and now. Clero was faster though than Birenbakhti in the middle sector. He's coming around the final sector at the moment as Santiago Ramos goes 4th fastest. There's DeParlo making his way through the first sector. Where will Clero go? He will go 2nd fastest, just ahead of Birenbakhti right now, and 98 thousandths away from the Italian Matteo DeParlo. We've not quite yet undermined Slater's fastest time just yet. Remember, it was a 1:35.250 for Freddie Slater. Matteo DeParlo's fastest time, a 1:35.359. Jack Beaton has just been dispossessed for 4th by Evan Gilter. The young man from the Gold Coast looking to bring his very best. Taito Kato into 6th. Santiago Ramos drops down to 7th. Tim Gerhard's up into 11th place as well. Personal best coming in from Jaroslav Vasalo, who crosses the line but remains down in 13th fastest. But DeParlo just cooling the car down again, just getting the tyres prepped for one last go. It's all going to rest on these closing moments. 2 minutes and 13 left in the session. And Matteo DeParlo, who of course was racing for Santaloc last year, and decided to make the switch to Trident, who have really established themselves as serial winners in the FIA Formula 3 Championship, with former and reigning Formula Regional European Championship by Alpine champion Rafael Camara, who has now just won the FIA Formula 3 title this year. So now Matteo DeParlo flies down through towards turn 1 once again. Of course, was a race winner at Spa back in his early single-seater days in Spanish F4. Finished 5th in the championship that year, but winning that Spa race. Later Italian F4 and British F4 becoming the precursor to taking part in the Formula Regional European Championship by Alpine, and it's green in the first sector again for Matteo DeParlo. Fastest once more. There's 3 drivers as well disputing for fastest speed traps as well. Currently that's being held by Nandavid Birenbakhti. It's become 2 now with Taito Kato as well. But green in the first sector. Green in the first sector as well for Santiago Ramos. Also for Matteo Capietto and Rui Kilu. So let's keep our eyes on DeParlo though, because he in the immediate is fighting for overall pole position and needs to displace Freddie Slater's 1:35.250. And it's again purple for Matteo DeParlo. He's found more time. It's a 1:35.359. That was his last time. That was his last best. Fine margins could make the difference here now. 97 thousandths coming out of the middle sector. Needs a little bit more. It's just under. Just over a 1/10 of a second he needs to find in order to surpass Freddie Slater. Here comes Matteo DeParlo, and it's a 1:35.279. Not enough for overall pole position. DeParlo will not take it. Here comes Birenbakhti. Will remain 3rd for now. Clero has gone purple in the middle sector. We have got more times going the Brazilians' way, looking to raise the roof. Becoming the first driver to take a 4th pole this season. Can Clero do it? He's managed to muscle in a 38.235 inside that middle sector. Is it going to be enough? Let's have a look as he crosses the line. No, it won't be, but it's enough for 2nd. Clero remains exactly where he is. As the checkered flag comes out, De Paulo will remain in first fastest, but it won't be pole, as now more cars come across. We're seeing Nanovid Birankbakhti still in third, Gilles about to come across the line as well. Jack Beaton, no improvements in the middle sector for either of those two drivers. Beaton remains in fifth. Taito Kato currently sitting in sixth place. He's about to cross the stripe as well at the same time. Gilles will remain in fourth, for at least for now. We've got Tim Gerhard's improving in the middle sector. Jaroslav Vasalo looking to finish quick as well for Santalok. As now they do come through, Tim Gerhardt remains down in 11th. No change there for him. The Dutchman remains in 11th place. Vasalo remains in 13th. And Nanovid Birankbakhti, of course, who hasn't taken the checkered flag just yet, but on a cool-down run. It's Matteo De Paulo fastest here at the end of Group B's run here in qualifying, but still not enough to go faster than Freddie Slater. It's a 1:35.279 for Matteo De Paulo, and he's just shy by 29 thousandths of a second from Slater's fastest time. Pedro Clero in second place for Van Amersfoort. It's Nanovid Birankbakhti in third. Evan Gilles finishing in fourth. Jack Beaton in fifth, ahead of Taito Kato. Santiago Ramos in seventh. Dion Gouda in eighth. Then Ruiki Liu in ninth. Maseo Capietto 10th. Tim Gerhard's in 11th. Then Hiyu Yamakoshi 12th. And Jaroslav Vasalo in 13th. So that will conclude qualifying one here this weekend. Of course, we have another session to bring you tomorrow, but race one is what comes first. We'll see you later on this afternoon as we go racing here at Barcelona.